Welcome back to Whom It May Concerns Hood Professionals. I am your host, AP. And this month of Black History, we are joined by a special guest. He is a certified personal trainer, a business owner, and a nonprofit president. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Vonshay Jackson to the podcast.
All right.
Welcome, Vonshay. How are you this great day?
I'm doing pretty good. I can't complain at all. I'm excited to be doing the podcast with you on a very interesting topic.
Awesome. So before we jump into the topic, tell the people a little bit about Vonshay.
Okay, I'll be very brief. As you all heard, my name is Vonshay Jackson, and I'm born in Pensacola, Florida. I've been in various careers, from law enforcement to restaurant management to social work to nonprofit management. I have a lot of experience working with children, which I love to do mentorship. Within a lot of those careers, though, I have been management, which means I supervise many employees. So, which kind of gives me a little experience to talk about the topic that we have on hand tonight.
Yes, it does. And tonight, for this month, we're going to talk about human resources is not your friend and how you need to learn how to manage workplace conflict. And conflict isn't necessarily always a hostile or a heightened issue. Sometimes it can really just be about learning like protocol or really finding your place and your voice, and being able to manage yourself before you find yourself in a situation that's not comfortable, shall I say.
Oh, I definitely agree with you on that.
So I'm going to give the people a little definition about human resources. Now, sometimes you'll see the acronym HRM, and that's Human Resources Management. And pretty much the role of HR is to find people who fit the culture of the organization. A lot of times I like to tell people that if an organization is a type A, and if you're a type C, then you have to pretty much kind of figure out as a type C, are you willing to adapt to that type A environment? Or do you need to continue looking for somewhere else for you to fit in?
Right.
The main functions of HR is recruiting, hiring, and retaining talent, employee engagement, performance management, compensation and benefits, development and training like professional development, promotion from within, reducing turnover, risk management, and audits and legal compliances such as, labor laws, benefits, and fair compensation. So now that we know a little bit about the technical terms about what HR is, let's talk about ways in which HR plays a part when it comes to a workplace conflict.
Oh, juicy.
I know, Vonshay, you spoke about having the opportunities to be in positions where you were in upper management, meaning that you were supervising at least what's like the largest group of people you would say that you've been able to supervise?
It was 21.
Okay. And so that experience, you feel free if you want to give the feel that it was in or not. How would you say, what were like the typical types of conflict that you mostly saw within that particular position?
I would have to use the restaurant industry, being a store manager or also known as a GM, having that many employees. A lot of the issues came with conflict of employees just not getting along. And it goes back to, character, the traits of that. It goes back to the scheduling, who's not getting enough hours and comparison. So there's a lot of that going on and trying to satisfy everyone, which you really can't always do. You really just have to go by policy and do your best, And a lot of that goes down to the employees themselves too, because that goes back to their performance.
Right. So when people think about performance management, a lot of them think more so about their productivity, right?
Yeah.
So as a manager, what else is coming into that performance review?
You have the baseline of simplicity, which is them, number one, who's showing up for work and on time and prepared, and knowing the basic job duties of what they're doing. And you could build that up to, the training, making sure that they're responding to training positively, that they're showing growth in their job performance. The attitude, of them liking what they're doing, because if someone don't like what they're doing, a lot of times their performance is going to be low. You're going to experience a lot of resentment, a lot of, just attitudes that just comes out of nowhere.
I can say that I've been one of those employees where when I was younger, so I definitely can speak to that. When it's something that you're not enjoying, you do tend to have a more, it's whatever type of attitude, with the position or with the job. And I can see definitely how people can, be reluctant or give you lower marks when it comes to your performance review. And you're kind of like, wait a minute, I'm here, I'm showing up, I'm not calling out. So, why am I not getting stellar remarks?
Right.
I'm just saying, we just want to know. What about employee to customer / client conflict?
Oh, those are nowadays what we see on social media live videos of bad customer service in a restaurant. People end up fighting. That's the drastic part of that. There's sometimes the calmer conflict of things that's able to be talked out in disagreement, or, say like food service, the order being made wrong, and the customer wanting to be satisfied for what they pay for the product. So the correct approach for the employee would be, I'm sorry that you're experiencing this. Let us fix this for you. Something to that aspect. And what we have sometimes, we have the employee, they may have just a straight attitude because they don't want to do it. And then the customer is experiencing that. And then, of course, they get upset. But you have the other side of the coin where the customer come in and they're just straight tearing into someone's butt, cussing them out of everything, that it really does deserve that they could have had a better approach themselves. So that's when you have those conflicts that can happen very easily. And there's ways to handle those too, to the best of your ability. And that comes back to proper training under the management.
Gotcha. So I know that in doing my research, they talk about how, I know that not all, but going into certain organizations, you have HR, they do trainings before they I don't like to say release, before you go into your designated programs or departments, right?
That's correct.
Yeah. And so, but now when you think of it, HR is not necessarily training you for your job. They're more so training you about the culture of the organization.
Right. Their main thing is to provide you the policies and procedures, also known as SOPs in some places, your benefits, your payroll, and it's like, here's your packet, report to your place of duty, and that's really it. The place where you're working, they're really responsible for your training. It's like in high school, we call it OJT, on the job training. You really get that in the workplace world. Like I did law enforcement for 15 years. The city government is the HR, but you're working at the police department. So that police department has a training department. They're responsible for you to get all the training that they have to turn in for the state for your state certification. So those are the line of separation that exists between the HR and the actual company's training department.
So when you look at training, it again is training preparing you for the job at hand, or is training preparing you to be the type of employee that organization wants you to be?
The ultimate goal is to be what that company or the organization wants you to be. And I say that very loosely because you have a lot of companies, that's what they train you for, but you're still missing key elements of training for your specific job duties. And a lot of times when people are not getting the proper training to their specific job duties, they can never be that model employee that that company wants and talks about in their mission statement and so forth.
Very true. Very true. Okay, you make some good points there, Mr. Vonshea. Next, we're going to talk about employee to manager workplace conflict and how that can be very trying. I'm going to give you a scenario and you can let me know how you would model that.
Okay.
If there's someone who's in a situation where they feel like, I've had people to tell me that they have been almost uncomfortable or discouraged to go to their manager to talk about issues that they may be having with their work or with their assignment, or even just gaining clarity, which can then result in a workplace conflict, because it's like, if you're afraid to voice your concerns to your manager, how can you possibly, grow in that position? And how can you also effectively do your job? So what do you say about a scenario with that and how we could manage that type of conflict?
That's a very good scenario, and it's so realistic. I think a lot of this comes down to the type of environment that is when administration and management produces and backs up and has a stance on a conflict-free and a hostile-free work environment. You can't help but turn to your managers, even your fellow employees. It creates that environment for you to be welcome to talk to your managers when there's issue arise. One of the best things is for a manager to have an open door policy. Make the employees feel welcome. Tell them verbally to their face, especially when they're being hired. I think that's very important. They first come in the door, you're doing orientation. You explain to this place here, we are a working family, because you're here all hours of the day and you still away from your children, your family, and depending on what type of profession, you may be working at night. So you're away from your kids. So this is your outlet still. This is your way of living at the same time. So let us work together. If you have any issues, come let me know. And you make it known. Even if you have to do like a nice little posting on the bulletin board in the common area of a workplace, showing that this place is welcoming. We want everyone here comfortable to work together. Because when everyone feels welcome when they first come in and the management stands by it, you're going to have a good workplace. You're going to have very highly productive employees. Look at the business model of Chick-fil-A and Publix. As a consumer, when we walk in there, you're greeted, you're treated well. But if you continue to look, you're going to see those employees work together, even in the busiest times, and they're calm and they're talking pleasant to each other. I love their business model. I love what they stand for. And look what you get. You get greeted the whole time, by several people. Even you just stand there or sitting in the drive-thru line, or you walking to the store. Everyone say, "Hey, how you doing?" So they're doing that with in-house too. They're talking to each other in this friendly manner. You see the managers checking in, and active working managers, they get down with their crew. They will bag the groceries. They get out there in the drive-through line at Chick-fil-A. And it's nothing like employees seeing a manager really care and will step in with them. That can help calm down the management and employee conflicts.
Oh man, Vansha, that was a really good visual to have to go along with that, because when you really, because you know, saying it, like, yeah, when you go into those two establishments, everyone is working together, and you're never walking into into a situation with either one of those places where if they're under pressure, if things are hectic, you would never know as a consumer, as a customer, you would never know it. And they are. No, I've been to some of the hoodest places, and there has been a Chick-fil-A, and let me tell you, still not a sign of duress or attitude.
Yeah.
None of those things. So, you know, that is true. That has to be said. And it's funny that you said open door policy, because I wrote it down right after I had posed the scenario to you. I was like,
did.
I did, because, you know, people speak about open door policy, and I think sometimes we can parade words to make ourselves look, you know, like diversity, inclusion, and, you know, and equity type of things. Like, that's like a hot topic now, ever since, like, I would say pre-19, and especially when we had the whole Black Lives Matter movement happening. People, you know, every time there was some type of conflict that arose, people were like, oh, we're going to send them to EDI training. Like, that was the thing, you know, that was the thing to do. And now people are like, well, you know what? We don't have to send the EDI training. We can say that we implement that into our policy, into our organization.
Yes.
So you can rest assured that you're never going to have to worry about that issue. So then my question with the whole, you know, going into open door policy is, how can upper management, so like, you know, your directors and CEOs and things of that nature, how can we implement the whole EDI template for not just the clientele that we service, but also and mainly, like you said, well, I guess you answered that question, but for the employees, because I feel like sometimes the employees are forgotten about when it comes to practicing EDI, and it's more so for the consumer and not the actual people who are providing the service.
Yes, I totally get what you're saying. And you see it a lot. A lot of companies lose their vision and their mission statement, especially their mission statement on what you're doing. I think in a lot of companies, if you include your employee morale within your vision statement or the company's vision and goals, to show the community or the consumers how you're using your employees and your personnel, I think that can help curb some of that initially. But I think there's a gap between the upper management, you know, directors and human resource, that it's like CYA for the company. You know? And there's no one really truly looking out for the employee. Because if you look at the policy and procedures, how most policies and procedures are written, it's as if, as an employee, you mess up, this is what we're going to do to you. But we'll give you some benefits, though. Meanwhile,
right?
That's how it looks now. And I think a lot of policy procedures and everything in HR, and it's like a triangle. At the points of the triangle, HR, the directors or executive directors of a company or business, and the employee has other points. If they could really have those lines connect those points, you could have a tremendous company. You could have high morale. You could have successful employees. You would have high retention of employees instead of a high turnover rate. And so if those points can be, you know, mended together without leaving the employee out, I think that a lot of good can happen. But when that's not there, you're going to have those high turnover rates. You're going to have those high termination rates also. You're going to have the high levels of people resigning, you know, quitting and just leaving the area because they had enough, because their needs aren't getting met. Or when they're bringing issues to HR, HR is like, okay, all right, we heard you. All right, we'll get back with you. But it's a quick contact to that department or that upper management. Hey, this is what they said. Tell us what happened. Instead of, let us know how this happened so we can see how both parties can be satisfied in this situation, because we don't want you to lose an employee. Also, we don't want the company to look bad. That should be a whole situation really looked at, within the approach. But it's more like, okay, how can we protect the company? This is what they're saying. Should we prepare for an attorney? So that's not helping that employee management relationship.
So before we move into the next thing, how do you think, what then becomes is it like a scarlet letter for an employee to go to HR when they're having a conflict or an issue with another employee or with a customer or with a manager or even with a higher direct?
The way it looks is like, we hope an employee don't come to say nothing to us, really. And it's not encouraged either. It's like, it's small little fragments of a couple sentences when it talks about grievances. It's a small section, but everything else is big about how you mess up, how you recommend. But when it comes about grievances of a fellow employee or a supervisor, we just hope that don't happen.
That is true. I've seen paperwork for like one-on-one coaching when it's time for you to be reprimanded as a employee. But it's like, well, where is the paperwork when the roles are reversed?
Yeah, and that's what happens so much. And that's when you see a lot of employees seeking legal counsel. And that's the thing that companies and HR don't want to happen. They do not like employees obtaining legal counsel and attorneys filing paperwork and lawsuits or subpoenas or any type of legal action, because their first thing, they want to settle. Let's not let this hit the news waves, or we want to protect the company. How much money are we going to put out for this settlement if it comes to that? And when these employees file, the grievances and so forth, or it's sometimes even the grievance is not taken seriously. It's kind of like swept under the rug, like, oh, well, we're sorry. Well, how about we give you this? It's like giving a pacifier. And, it's a shame that even a lot of the situations are handled with HR departments, and the employee never still really gets anywhere with HR. It's like the termination still is being pushed. They're forced to sign paperwork. When people are not ready, they're not understanding the paperwork, so they try to rush it. And they don't explain what your true rights are. They don't explain what your options are, even without seeking counsel. It's like they don't try to help you. It's like, here, this is what your employees say. This is what we agree with. We're going to suspend you with or without pay, or or we're going to have to terminate you because this is what they said. And they come up with a whole plan while you're stressing at home, trying to figure out how you're going to take care of your children or yourself and so forth, and bills, while your livelihood is just placed in just a one-sided situation.
Right. I read where it said most lawsuits can be traced to issues related to hiring, performance management, employee discipline, and termination. And how a lot of times it has to do with like outdated policy procedures that are posted up around the office. I never knew how important those type of things were. How you go into a workplace and you'll see those posters up and this and other. And I've seen people scrambling, trying to like put up a new one or find one to put up, because people actually come out and review.
Yes.
Come into businesses and say, hey, can I see your what is it? Was it EE? Equal employment opportunity. Yeah. Like, where's your EEO at? Or where's your procedures and policy? Where's your benefits thing at? Or where's the hotline that employees can call into if they need to make a request? So I can definitely say that, like that, you know, I've seen that firsthand, people scrambling, trying to get those things together. I'm just like, well, whose job is that? Because it's just a poster. How you forget to put a poster up?
You know, and it's the upper management job to put that stuff up. And what happens is when it's first put up, nobody really pays it any more attention until something happens, like we were saying, when employees finally get exposed to that they have some legal right, that they can appeal things. You know, you don't have to necessarily sign the paperwork just with your signature and be done with it. Like, you still can appeal things and fight. And one of the things that a lot of people don't know is when you're forced to sign something that you don't agree with, one of the things that you can do is when you sign your name, you can put a parentheses under duress. And what that means is you don't agree with what's being done, but they're forcing you to sign this. And once you do that, always ask for copies of anything you sign with your job. Always ask for copies. They don't like that, but ask for copies because you need to start your own paper trail. So if you do have to contact the EOC or a legal attorney, this is what they're going to start with. And so your documentation is just as important as they're building a file folder on you, and they're not telling you what it is. So the whole time they're building a file folder, investigating, piecing things together, seeing how they're going to fight against you. And so most of the time the ball is not in your court.
So you kind of go into the next subject matter of how to document write-ups and verbal warnings, which I think sometimes verbal warnings, you know, it's just like one of those things you're kind of like, okay, you know, what am I supposed to do with this? Do you think that verbal warnings are being documented on management side, or is it just something like, hey, I had this conversation with you and that's that?
Verbal warnings to me are so weak. I have no other way to put it. But the one way I look at verbal warnings is it's not just a warning, hey, don't do that no more. It's really a warning. This is what we're trying to do to you. Because if someone has to give you a verbal warning on something, a lot of that goes back to whoever trained you didn't do something right. They missed something that making sure you understood. They got to give you a verbal warning in many cases. So I say to anyone, keep a notebook. Nobody has to know you have your notebook. You can keep it in your car. I mean, we have so many apps on our phone. You can put the notes in on the app. You can do verbal dictations on your phone and different apps. Today, this happened at such a time. Manager said something this, or coworker said something this. It violates this policy. You make your own notes, and you can go back in and write it down and start a journal with that stuff. Because believe me, HR, they're going to keep the paper trail that the upper management gives them, and that's what they're going to go with. So anytime you sign something, like I said a little while ago, sign it, put it under duress, and, start your own file folder. Definitely document. And if you have to email anybody or contact anyone, email is the best way. Because what happens is you can copy people and you can blind copy people. But one thing about it, it is on that company server. So if you ever have to get to the point of legal counsel, they could subpoena those emails. They could subpoena the emails and get all that stuff and see what was really sent. So if something's said to you or asked of you to do something that you don't agree with, email them back. Hey, I just want to make a clarification. This is what you said. This is what you expect me to do. ? Let them tell you yes. Force them to put it on email thread. Try not to do too much texting because, of course, people can delete texts. You can go into the email account of your cell phone service and delete stuff too. So, but that server, of the company, that's a benefit for you in those type of circumstances.
So let's talk about managing stress. So we know that there comes a point in time where you're not always going to have the best day at work, right? There are times where you're overwhelmed. You are stretched. You know, you're extending your services to multiple departments, or you happen to be in multiple areas at various times. How do we manage our stress and not going off? Because this is a podcast by a Black woman. Everyone knows, even though it's a podcast for everybody, I do tend to hone in on Black issues. So, and I always say that as Black people, we cannot afford to go off at work, aka a meltdown, because it's not seen. It's not seen as a meltdown. It's just not, because you have that stigma on you. So, with you having to work in law enforcement, also in the restaurant industry, which, my God, I know that is stressful. What are some things that you can say that people can easily do to manage their stress, that they're not finding themselves with that scarlet letter of like, don't say nothing to Von Sher. You say something to him, that's the end.
Yeah, it's very easy, even in the African American community, for men and women to be looked at as that angry person, and that's not always the case. That's one of those titles that's thrown around loosely. We do express things emotionally and verbally differently, and we do endure a lot of different things in unfavorable situations within businesses and their jobs, from, unequal pay, promotion. You see things happen that's not allowed for you, so we experience that more than our counterparts. It's just reality. Mm-hmm. Not that it's being compared. That's just reality, how things have been for decades. So, but as far as the management aspect, definitely breathing techniques is always pushed, but it's so beneficial. Even take a moment just to close your eyes, take a deep breath in the corner a couple times, and just let it out. Even if sometimes you may have to go outside, take a walk in the parking lot, block down the road and come back, because exercise, it releases endorphins and the hormones, and this is very good for stress relief. So if you have those opportunities to do that, depending on your profession, definitely do that. If you're not able to do it at work, do something when you come home. Walk in your neighborhood, or you got a home gym, or you have a gym membership. Having those outlets to offset the stress and the tension is very key. Even your home environment of what's going on, even down to the cleanliness, organization of your home. Those are different things that helps calm your stress, even when you have to go back to work the next day. But even on site, having somewhere you could go, or having that one person there that you could go to, that you could confide in, that nothing would go nowhere else, and you're like, hey, look, this is what I'm dealing with, and you just let it go, blah blah blah, and you get it off your chest, you could get a release. But definitely having different things you can do for stress management, even down to the stress balls you walk around and squeeze, so finding those outlets are very, very important. We know stress is a very silent killer. So even if someone has issues, medical issues like high blood pressure, hypertension, heart disease, kidney disease, stress is not good for those persons. So even if you don't have those health issues, stress attacks everyone differently. Someone who might not even have a health issue could get so stressed out at work that they can go into a stroke or heart attack. So it's down to, is it really worth it? That's what we need to remind ourselves. If we could catch ourselves, work on catching ourselves quickly. You know what? I'm not going to respond to that right now. And that's another thing. A lot of times, depending on the situation we're in, do we actually need to respond right then?
Right.
Or tell her, hey, just give me a moment. I'm gonna get back with you. So let these things become a practice. It's very important.
I hope y'all taking note and listening to that, because I'm always telling y'all, do not under any circumstances go off, because once you go off that ledge, it is so hard to come back from that, because you're gonna have that stigma on yourself of, as kind as you are all those other times, all it takes is just one time for you to just show your whole bottom. and that's just what it's gonna be, and that's just what it's going to be. So lastly, to wrap it up, we're talking about knowing when to leave, whether it's the company or a situation, when to just pin it and say, it's like it's not worth it, or it's not gonna go anywhere, or I'm not being heard. But again, as you get older, you tend to put up with some things that you wouldn't necessarily put up with when you were younger, especially for those who do have families beyond themselves, as far as like children, or they're caring for maybe a parent or a sibling, so so give me one of each. Give me one thing when you would say when it's time to leave a company, and then when when it's time to just leave a situation where it lays.
Okay. I'm gonna address the company part first. When it's affecting your peace, and when I say that, you're not at peace at the job, and you're not at peace at home because of the job. It's affecting your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health. These are very high items that we need to look at when it's considered it's time to go. Because one thing about it, if you put time in with a job, you got some type of certificate, degree, or or so forth, there's opportunity out there. That you can find something else. Seek the direction. Apply other places before you leave. When it's starting to go downhill, that's where you need to start maybe applying other places and so forth, or even start trying to learn up on how to start a business that's centered around your passion and your gifts. That's when it's getting close to that time to get ready to leave that company. The situation, I think, sometimes we don't want to jump the gun. So really looking at, is this something that could be mended, and how? Where would it be a possible mediator that could come in of some sort to help resolve the issues before we flee, the situation? But then again, even with the situation, how is it affecting you? Is it just pissing you off, or it's having those factors that's, affecting your health, your mental health, and your physical body? So really looking at ourselves, and we're in a season now that has been a big push for self-care. I think putting yourself first in both these entities is key. It's very vital. How can I move on? Can I continue to function this way and have positive results? That's what we need to look at.
Oh, wow. Well, Vanshay, I want to say I want to thank you for giving us your time and your expertise on the subject matter. But before we end, I like to play a little word association game. So I'm going to say a word, and I want you to tell me what comes to mind when I say that word. How about that?
I'm game for that. I'm game. Let's do it.
Okay. So, risk management.
Ooh, risk management. The first thing you got to think about is protect yourself. Definitely on any job, make sure you're aware of your safety in your surrounding areas. Risk management can tackle a lot of different things. Even in the workplace, risk management is that company providing you the proper equipment for you to do your job and be safe and effective. It's a risk. Does it help your body posture? Because a lot of places have computers and desks and chairs that really don't match our body. That's still a risk management issue, not even that you're hurting yourself. So that's what comes to mind.
Okay. Policy.
Policy. First thing come to mind is make sure you read it like it's the Bible. Because you need to know it, because that's what's going to be used against you when HR is not your friend.
Paper trail.
Documentation. Everything. Documentation.
Engagement.
Be yourself and open and inviting.
Health.
Self-care. Consider yourself first.
Okay, and lastly, Von Shea.
Von Shea. First thing comes to mind is I'm victorious. I'm the person that can be successful in anything I do.
Well, that is fitting. Again, thank you so much. And tell the people where we can find you on the World Wide Web.
Okay, well, my actual website is under construction right now. However, you can find me on Facebook under Von Shea Jackson. I also have my personal training page, Exclusive Health and Fitness, on Facebook and Instagram. You can find me at Von Shea Jackson Exclusives. My nonprofit is also Von Shea Jackson Exclusives Incorporated. Those are where you can find me. You can send me a message, and I do check them daily. And so I try to be responsive the quickest possible, but I don't mind anyone reaching out to me. I'm very open. I have a lot of people that contact me for public speaking engagement and motivational speaking engagement, especially for children and youth. Has been a very passionate area of my life too. So, but that's where everybody can find me.
All right, y'all heard it. Make sure that you check it out. I'm also going to have it located on our advertisement, so you can see that on our IG account and also on Facebook. And until next time, and remember, take care of yourself. Think, speak, and be positive in all things. Until next time, peace.
Peace.